From our State House studio in Montgomery, I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. Another busy day in the Alabama legislature as the House and Senate met for the 27th legislative day. That leaves just 3 meeting days left in this regular session. We'll start our coverage in the House of Representatives, which gave final passage to the state's general fund budget. The $3.4 billion budget is a record for the state, thanks to historically high revenues, particularly from the online sales tax and accrued interest from the state's trust fund accounts. House General Fund Budget Committee Chairman Rex Reynolds said he worked closely with his Senate counterpart to make sure they were in agreement.
SB 67 does reflect a $3,373,459,234. And Mr. Speaker, I have a committee sub, and since no BIR is required, I'll go ahead and explain that. As we discussed earlier, like I say, we ended the 2023 budget cycle with about a 16.6% increase over our 2022 numbers. We have seen that same type of increase in this fiscal budget, mainly due to the same factors that I commented on the supplemental, our SSUT tax, our ad valorem taxes, and certainly our interest on state accounts that continue to stay up much longer than we anticipated.
The House also gave final passage to legislation aimed at cracking down on child labor violations. Senate Bill 119 from Senator Robert Stewart institutes stricter penalties for employers found to be in violation of the state's child labor laws. Representative Cynthia Almond carried the bill in the House.
And this particular bill is dealing with penalties. Recently, there were stories that were in the news about individuals working at a car company that was killed or doing roofing or something. How would that, what is in place now and what you're bringing, how is that different, or does it make it better or worse? I mean, I'm assuming, disregard the worst, that how we're improving on that, or what are the...
So those two bills are unrelated. This bill does not change the age at which somebody is allowed to work or any of the rules surrounding that. It just recognizes that when a child who is illegally employed and it suffers serious physical injury or dies due to that employment, we're increasing the fines and penalties.
I'll speak with Senator Stewart in more detail about this bill later in the show. The Senate took up the Education Trust Fund today. It's also a record spending plan at $9.3 billion. Education Budget Chairman Arthur Orr said he was pleased with the end result, but warned that tougher budgetary times could be ahead.
The value of the dollars that we're appropriating today don't have the same value, and if all things being equal, we are $700 per student less than we were in 2010. So that's a real concern. We need to put more money towards education. I don't know the future, but I do read the financial reports and the financial media to know enough that the predictions are not rosy for the next year or 2 or 3, and that will adversely affect our education revenues. That's a real concern going forward.
We're looking at, once again, education staff are going to receive a pay raise. That's going to be the same thing in the general fund budget as you all saw. For state employees, I think that's very important. Our school teachers and staff and state workers do a great job. That's one element. I think there are other elements that are in looking at ways that we can have capital equipment, resources go to schools, which is very important. You saw a huge commitment there. Also, another commitment that's tough to hear and tough to talk about, but the amount of money that we're spending on mental health related issues associated with our schools, even in elementary and middle schools, is something that is hard to know, but it's a requirement, and we have increased significantly the amount of dollars that are going to those projects.
So, the Education Trust Fund, Supplemental Spending Plan, and the Advancement and Technology Fund all passed the Senate today. The bills went back to the House, where members there voted not to accept the Senate's changes and go to a conference committee to work out the differences. So look for that next week. The Senate also took up the issue of parental leave for state and education employees. A plan to allow new mothers 6 weeks of paid leave after having or adopting a child passed committee earlier this week. But legislative leaders said the finances didn't add up yet, and it's too late in the session to pass that kind of bill. Senator Vivian Figures brought the bill to the floor today and successfully amended it to be more expansive, to where parents would get 8 weeks paid leave, and it would apply to miscarriages or stillbirth. The Senate passed the bill, but only in a ceremonial way, as it is too late for the bill to become law. But Figures was upset and lashed out at Republican leaders for not transmitting the bill to the House.
Females are in a minority in this chamber, but your thoughts and your ideas are very important to what we're doing. And the fact that we're able to bring this up to date, your request, have the review and the discussion, even though we knew that it wasn't going to be able to make its path, you've already stated that you're going to be back next year and be continuing to work with all of us on things that are important related to this issue.
It really stings that you voted not to, that you objected to it being transmitted. It does, because it wasn't going anywhere anyway. And I've not objected to anything else being transmitted here. I always try to work with everybody. But maybe I'm going to have to start raising hell like Senator Smitherman and Senator Singleton does. But I'm just really disappointed because I haven't had many bills this session. Anyway, thanks a lot.
The Senate also gave final passage to legislation establishing the Alabama School for Health Sciences in Demopolis. The idea is to have a specialized high school for healthcare careers similar to the School of Fine Arts in Birmingham, the School of Math and Science in Mobile, and the School of Technology in Decatur. Senator Bobby Singleton said he worked closely with Governor Kay Ivey on finally making this a reality.
Another jewel for the state of Alabama to be able to brag on. We'll be able to say, to set a tone in the state of Alabama. When you got philanthropist groups like the Bloomberg who believe in you and invest in $26 million, they're going to do this with 10 other spots around the nation. And when you look at you, and we're the only rural area they're going to do it. They're mostly in urban areas. So I feel really good about Demopolis. I feel good that, you know, the investment that the state is going to give to us in Demopolis, they're going to be the greatest return on investment that we have seen, because those nurses, doctors, all those specialties will stay right here in Alabama.
So what's next on the issue of gambling? As we've reported, the package to institute a lottery, legalize slot machine casinos, and start a compact with the Porch Band of Creek Indians fell one vote short in the Senate on Tuesday. The package did not come back up today, as some thought it might, and there were differing opinions about its prospects in the final days of the session.
If they're going to get this passed, they need to find another vote, maybe 2 or 3, just in case that we go. But that's going to be the job of others. My decision's made. That's where I am. Plenty more folks out there that have an opportunity to change their mind if they choose. Their efforts may be different from mine. Their views are different than mine. But that's where I am.
You know, somebody can always come back and make the motion to non-concur and go back to conference again. We can be sent back to conference again. But you look at the days that we have, okay? And so right now, you know, we just working with what we got. We've been dealt a hand, and I'm hopefully that, you know, members will come around and understand what is at stake and be able to give the people of the state of Alabama the right to vote. Because I believe in my members. I believe in this body. I believe in this process. Until that bell rings, sign and die, I'm not giving up.
A major economic development announcement today. Governor Kay Ivey and Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed announced that Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, is building an $800 million data center here in the capital city. It's expected to create 100 jobs and build on the state's growing tech industry.
I'm proud to announce that Meta will open a data center right here in Montgomery that will build on their previous investment in our great state. I've got to say, it's not just the bricks and mortar here that we should be excited about, but bytes and data that will keep some of the world's most popular platforms running smoothly right from our own backyard.
Meta's Montgomery data center will be optimized for our AI workloads as part of the highly advanced infrastructure that helps bring our technologies to life. These buildings and the hardware inside of them will help people connect with friends and family, find communities, and grow businesses. But it's important to us that this impact with our data centers is not only felt online. We want to make sure that we are creating a positive impact at the local level in communities like Montgomery.
Coming up after the break, I'll sit down with State Senator Merika Coleman to discuss her legislation making sure President Joe Biden is on the November ballot, plus the idea of state colleges perhaps purchasing the Birmingham Southern campus. And after that, State Senator Robert Stewart joins me to talk about his child labor legislation and the future of the gambling package. We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is State Senator Merika Coleman from Birmingham. State Senator, thanks for coming on the show. I'm
glad
great
to be here.
It's been a long week.
It has been. It's been a long session.
That's true. It kind of feels different.
I'm kind of glad we're at the end now.
Almost. Well, you have a bill that's a couple of pieces of legislation I want to talk about, but one that you've worked on for multiple years.
Yes.
Having to do with victims of the Boy Scouts who were victims of sex crimes, I suppose, of molestation, and there's a way to participate in a national trust fund. Talk about this.
Sure. So about 4 years now, I've actually had a broader bill for victims of child sex assault. And this year we actually had a standalone bill just for Boy Scouts, and we called it the Scouts Honor Bill, because there was a National Boy Scouts Settlement Trust trust fund, and they had recognized that they've been at fault. There was money there. And unless we pass that bill this year, our roughly 1,500 survivors of child sex assault in the state of Alabama would not have had an opportunity to have access to the full amount of money. This is a civil settlement, to the full amount of money that they deserve. So I'm excited that we got that done this year.
Yeah, Governor signed it into law, so that's done.
Signed it. I had some survivors here with me yesterday. And every time I get a bill signed through the years, I keep the pen that the governor, and I've had 3 different governors that they sign those bills. Yesterday I gave my first pen away. I mean, to think about what these children at the time have endured. And now as adults, you know, the fight to protect other children. I wanted to give that away to one of the survivors. And I could see that it visibly choked him up. And so we still have more work to do, though, with the broader bill.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. I know it takes
Thank
a lot
you.
of work on something like that, and to see it go to, into law is a real accomplishment.
Yes.
Another bill that you probably didn't expect to carry this year
I know.
is making sure that President Joe Biden can be on the ballot in November. This actually happened back in 2020 with Trump, right?
It did. It did.
And that was the roles are reversed because of the timing of the convention.
That's right, and that's exactly what it is. We got a word from the Secretary of State's office that we had to have our nominee in 82 days before the election. Well, the way that the Democratic National Convention was set, the nomination was not going to be complete, the official nomination for Joe Biden. So I did pass a bill along with all of my colleagues in both parties. We did it almost unanimously. And to make sure that President Joe Biden ends up being on the ballot. And I'm committed to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle so we can get a permanent fix.
I was going to say.
And we don't have to do this again.
Sounds like we need to fix that.
We do.
Yeah.
We really do. Because, again, I heard some debate from the House today, and someone was saying in like 2000, I don't know, it was like either 2015, 2020, it was one of those off years. Something happened,
right,
even with the Republican Party again. And they had to do it that time because their convention was in September.
Right.
So we do need a permanent fix.
Yeah, maybe something to work on in the off season.
And I'm proud of, I just have to say this, I'm proud of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. All of the Democrats, of course, co-sponsors and supported the piece of legislation. And I know some of my Republican colleagues were getting some pushback because some people in the public thought it was nefarious. They stuck to their guns and had they had political courage and said, hey, this is the right thing to do because we had to do the same thing in the past.
Yeah, and that would have been pretty embarrassing
I think
for the
so.
state if that's the one ballot.
It was two. It was
yeah.
Alabama and Ohio, but
really?
we got ours done.
Okay, well, yeah. So, I mean, it's just the right thing to do. I wanted to ask you about Birmingham Southern because
Sure.
obviously that's just, such a big deal that it's closing. But in the news this week, there are some potential buyers. Alabama A&M is talking about it. I know there are some other universities talking about it. It's a big part of the Birmingham community.
Yes.
So, what are you hearing? Is this a realistic?
Oh,
concept?
it is a big issue, of course. It would be really sad if it's sad, number one, that Birmingham Southern is closing. I did support them staying open, but we are here now. What I am willing to get behind is a consortium. I represent Miles College. President Knight has met with me. She says she has the support of all of the other HBCUs, both the 2-year college and the 4-year college HBCU presidents. And they will come together to be able to purchase that property and then have some type of continuing institution or, again, that's around STEM or cybersecurity and making sure that these first-time, many of the students that go through these HBCUs are the first in their family to ever go to college.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we maintain that school, that facility, it not be an eyesore, but also that collectively all of these HBCUs that can come together, and I'm willing to support that 100%.
Yeah, it is an opportunity and such a wonderful campus. You don't want to see it go to waste. So that's something we're definitely going to be following. Well, look, unfortunately, we're out of time.
Oh, boy.
But we'll have you back next week.
No Bitcoin. We forgot that one.
Bitcoin, we got gambling, lots to talk about, but just a little bit of time. But Senator, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page. You're watching Alabama Public Television.
Welcome back to Capitol Journal. Joining me next is State Senator Robert Stewart from Selma. Senator, thanks for coming on the show.
It's great to be back. It's been a while.
I know it has been a while, but look, we're here at the end of the session. I wanted to have you on. You have just passed a pretty significant piece of legislation having to do with child labor laws and maybe increasing some penalties for those who found in violation. Talk about this bill, where it came from, and I guess it's now headed to the governor's desk.
Yes, I'm so grateful for the opportunity. This is something that I really value. This is like the first bill that I actually drafted, and I literally walked with this bill from the Senate, getting it done and drafted with LSA during the summer, having it pass the Senate, having it pass out of Senate committee, Judy committee, then to the full Senate, then walk down with the House Judiciary Committee, and then to see it pass the full House today. It was an out-of-body experience.
It's not an easy process, is it?
It is not.
Not on something that, is a heavy lift. Like you said, it's one thing for non-controversial legislation, but something that does impact, have a big impact, it's a different story. So talk about that. What does this bill do?
So what this bill, we're dealing with the advent of increasing violations. There's so many child labor violations going on, and this is a nationwide issue. We've seen from 2022 to 2023 an increase of child labor violations of nearly 40%.
Really?
And we've seen it all in Alabama as well. what was really the catalyst for this bill is just seeing in North Alabama, we had a young man, age 15, fall off a roof, ultimately to his demise, unfortunately. And so he was working a construction job. And so my thought was that we need to have safeguards in place to deter bad actors and companies to be a deterrent for companies to violate the child labor laws that are already on the books. So it increases civil penalties, so the fines, and it also increases criminal penalties. And so we have some felonies that will be levied upon employers who violate it. And the Department of Labor will be responsible for really the oversight of this.
And I know you worked with the Secretary and the Department of Labor on this bill, right?
Yes, and just engaging with them, leadership with Department of Labor, they said that the fees were too low and the penalties, the criminal penalties were too low as well. And so just excited to have collaboration. Just grateful for the bipartisan support that it received, because this is really about protecting our children and making sure they have a bright future. And a lot of times we're also seeing the rolling back of child labor protections. And so this bill is a step in the right direction. I worked really, I'm wonky. And so I read a lot of economic policy and economic trends. And so the Economic Policy Institute did a study of children and their participation in the workforce. And what they found is that there is a trend for students and children. They're delaying going into the workforce because they're staying in school, they're getting more certifications, they're getting more education, and that is a trend that should not be reversed. It makes us have a stronger economy as a state when we have a more educated workforce and a more skilled workforce. We deal with the skills gap all the time. The state, we're passing legislation, a lot of workforce development bills, and we need to make sure that our children are protected while we're advancing our workforce development plans.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on passing this bill. Significant accomplishment. We only have a little bit of time, but I have to ask you about the issue of the week, and that's gambling, specifically because you have one of these locations in your district, the Whitehall facility there in Lowndes County. Where is this bill? Is it coming back up? What's the word in the Senate?
Well, for me, I'm really just want to share my disappointment of the failure of the bill passing, missing by one vote. I also just want to share that my heart goes out to the people of Whitehall and Lowndes County, because that facility is an engine driving economic development, and it provides jobs for the region. So I was really disappointed when it closed during the holidays. And so how the Whitehall facility has been targeted. And I'm grateful that this bill, this potential legislation, once passed, would allow the facility to reopen. And so I'm optimistic. I always have optimism. They say hope springs eternal. And so I'm really waiting anxiously to see what will happen, and just willing to support once we get the opportunity to vote on it again.
Yep, we are all waiting to see. Well, we're out of time, but Senator Stewart, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Todd.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts.
The Cahaba lily, named for the Cahaba River, is an aquatic plant native to the major river systems of Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. In Alabama, its best known natural habitat is the shoals of the Cahaba River. The lily is known for the striking beauty of its 3-inch wide white flowers. Each flower's 6 petals surround a thin corona, which connects the lower portions of the stamens. The lily's scientific name, Hymenocallis coronaria, translated as beautiful crown-like membrane, accurately depicts these characteristics. The lily requires a very specialized habitat of swift-flowing water over rocks and an open canopy. The plant's bulbs and seeds spend the winter buried in the rocky riverbed. Leaves begin to emerge above the waterline in mid-April. Flowering commences in mid-May, reaching its peak in late May and early June. The showy flowers attract a variety of pollinators as well as large numbers of canoers and kayakers during the spring blooming period.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. Be sure to join us tomorrow night for our Week in Review episode. That's 7:30 here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capitol Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.